video, we will continue to examine the important concept of business ownership. We will look specifically at business partnerships and how choosing this legal structure might impact those involved. A partnership is a business owned by two or more people. There are many examples of partnerships everywhere we look, including accountancy firms, solicitors, vet practices, dentists, and many more. Although most partnerships are between 2 and 20 partners, you need to be aware that some examples, like John Lewis, have hundreds of partners. I want you to imagine that you have started your own enterprise. You have taken the risks, and everything has been going really well so far. You have chosen exactly the right product or service, and customers are handing over their hard-earned money. Your business has the chance to go on and become extremely successful. Would you share this business with your best friend? What could you gain by bringing them in? Would they be able to help by adding new skills to the situation? Maybe you are thinking, no way, I'm not going to share my new business with somebody else. What reasons do you have to think this? Why would you not want to get them involved? Before we go any further, let's introduce this video's main examples. This is Sarah Ellen, who is a fully qualified vet, and this is Jess May, and she is a fully qualified veterinary nurse. They are hoping to set up a small vet in a little town in Somerset. Having met at veterinary school, Sarah and Jess decided they would team up and start their own business. Sarah is extremely confident, Jess is pretty creative, and they are both willing to take the risks involved in launching their own enterprise. They have all of those key characteristics that make for successful entrepreneurs. Before they made any big decisions, they sat down and wrote a comprehensive business plan, detailing all the important sections required. During this process, they had to decide what form of business ownership that they would choose. As neither of them wanted to go it alone, setting up as a sole trader wasn't an option in this situation. We know from a previous video that this form of business is only owned by one individual. They considered forming a private limited company, sometimes known as an LTD, but eventually they settled on forming a business partnership. This seemed to be the perfect option for this situation. They would both be owners of the business and they could make all the decisions together. They wouldn't need to go through the same complicated process involved in becoming an incorporated business, a company. There were a few downsides to consider. They wouldn't be able to sell shares in the business and they would have unlimited liability. But we'll come back to this a little later. To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Now, I'm sure you trust your best friend, but before you decide to share your business with them, you would need some kind of agreement between the two of you. This agreement should probably be written down somewhere, and just in case you have some kind of falling out, it should probably be a legally binding document. I mean, hopefully you won't fall out, but what if this good friend of yours decides to run off with all your money? Well, luckily, there is already an official document for just this exact purpose. We call this the Deed of Partnership. Sounds pretty fancy, right? Well, this Deed of Partnership, also known as a partnership agreement, is a document that outlines in detail the rights and responsibilities of all the people involved. It is legally binding and is designed to guide the partners in how to manage their enterprise. It is often helpful in avoiding disputes and disagreements around important decisions, like the division of profit or an unbalanced workload. So, back to Sarah and Jess. They are really close friends, but they realise the sensible thing to do is to sit down and write their own Deed of Partnership. First, they need to decide how they are going to split the capital that they will invest. This is the money needed to actually start the business. As Jess has financial support from her wealthy parents, they settled on the fact that Jess was able to put more money into the business than Sarah. They decided Sarah would invest only £5,000 into the business, whereas Jess would invest £15,000. Although this investment would be slightly unbalanced, they agreed, once they were profitable, the extra £10,000 Jess had invested would be returned to her. Now it was time to think about how the profits, or maybe even losses, would be split. Think about this. If you put your entire life savings into a new business idea, let's say this is £1,000, and your friend only puts £1 in, should they get half of all the profits? I mean, would the business still have been as successful if you hadn't invested £999 more than them? In our example, although Jess has contributed considerably more money than Sarah, they agreed that they would have an equal share in the business. They would split everything completely down the middle, half to Jess, half to Sarah, even if that meant that they had to split debt if things didn't go exactly to plan. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. The next section of the Deed of Partnership involves deciding how many votes each partner will have when it comes to a decision. Is it completely equal, or does somebody have more say than other partners? In the case of Jess and Sarah, they decided that they would each have the same level of say when it came to any decisions that needed to be made. However, in another example, where let's say there are 3 partners, it might be that you decide one partner gets 3 votes because they invested £30,000. Another gets 2 votes as they invested £20,000. And the final partner only gets 1 vote as they only invested £10,000. So the level of control is directly proportional to the amount of money each partner has invested. Next up, when completing a deed of partnership, you will need to decide on the process of taking on a new partner. Can anybody be invited to become a new partner? Does everybody have to agree? Sarah and Jess came to the conclusion that they must both agree completely before any new partner could join the business. However, if they were to take on another partner, would they want them to have an equal say? Or only these 2 original partners? This is something that can be detailed in the partnership agreement. Finally, they decided that in the event that either partner wanted to leave the business, they would simply have to pay half of the debts owed, and Jess would take out the extra £10,000 that she had invested at the launch. There are a couple of important things to note about a deed of partnership. The first is that if no document is produced, then in the eyes of the law, everything is split equally between the partners, regardless of their levels of investment or contribution to running the business. You should also know that in the event one partner dies, a new deed of partnership must be created by the remaining partners, laying out the new division of the partnership and how things will work moving forward. Now that Sarah and Jess have completed their deed of partnership, they are ready to get things set up and launch their new practice. They are both extremely excited at the thought of getting to know their new customers and their fluffy pet companions. So Sarah and Jess have made up their mind. But let's explore in a little more detail the advantages and disadvantages to choosing to operate as a partnership. The first advantage that we will look at is shared risk. Unlike a sole trader, which we look at in another video, as a partnership, you are not alone, and there are others to help in the event of any difficulties, including any debts. For Sarah and Jess, this means they are both responsible for the business, both the good and the bad, the profit and the loss, the stress and the pride. It's all shared between the 2 of them. Having partners will mean there is likely more capital available to start a business, or in some cases even expand. In our example, Sarah and Jess have invested £20,000 to get their business up and running. This is more than either of them could have raised alone. In some cases, a business may take on a partner who simply invests finance in the business. They have no other involvement in the daily operations or decision-making process, and they bring no new skills. They only bring cash to the business. This kind of partner is referred to commonly as a sleeping partner or a silent partner. The next key advantage is that different partners will bring with them different skills. In our example, Sarah and Jess both have different experiences. One is a veterinary nurse and the other a fully qualified vet. Sarah is very confident and can really win over the customers, and Jess can use her creativity to brand the business, build a website, and develop promotional materials. They may even decide to add another partner in the future who could bring an entirely new set of skills. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learned to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions, each with detailed feedback, which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? And the final advantage that we will consider is increased credibility. For example, many suppliers and potential customers may see a partnership as a more trustworthy business than a sole trader. This may impact their decision to purchase a product or to try a service. As a vet, it is extremely important that Sarah and Jess are seen to be credible to their potential customers. After all, pets are part of the family, and trusting somebody to medicate or even operate on them is an extremely big deal. So it's really important that they are seen to be as credible as possible. Now, let's take a look at the other side of the coin and consider the disadvantages of forming a business partnership. Just like with a sole trader, as a partnership, you are unincorporated and therefore you have unlimited liability, meaning all partners are responsible for any debts owed by the business. This is such an important concept that if you still do not understand limited and unlimited liability, you should watch the previous video introducing this topic. Unlimited liability is a really crucial factor to consider, as failure to pay any business debts may mean that the partners have to sell their possessions to make these payments, or they could have their house or their car repossessed. Now think back to when I posed that initial question. Would you allow your friend to share your business? One of the first things that may have popped into your head is that you would have to share the profit. All that money that you get to keep after you have paid for your costs now has to be split with somebody else. This is of course true, and as a business partnership, you will have to share the profits as agreed in the deed of partnership document. In the same way that you share the risks and the responsibilities, you must share the rewards. As we have discussed, Sarah and Jess have agreed to split everything equally, and you might still think that you would never do that. You might be thinking, I can do it all alone. Remember though, that they may have a greater chance of success as a partnership and have the potential to make more money than either could have achieved alone. If you share a huge pie with your friend, this is still more than a whole pie that was much smaller in size. On to the next key disadvantage, which is the possibility of disputes. I am sure you and your friend get along most of the time, but what about those times when you don't? When you just can't agree? Well, in a business partnership, this can be a disadvantage and can mean that the partners are unable to respond to the changes as quickly and efficiently as they must all agree. They may disagree on how the workload is split. They may disagree on the marketing strategy, the product development, or the coffee in the coffee machine. But as partners, they must find a way to agree. Can't work it out, you're stuck. Your business can't move forward and you risk completely failing. The final disadvantage that we will look at is shared control. As a partnership, you do not have complete control over your business, at least not in the same way that you would as a sole trader. You must agree on anything before you can take action, and this can sometimes slow down the entrepreneur. If you are somebody who requires complete control of every little thing, then a business partnership might not be the best option for you. So, there you have it. When choosing the best form of business ownership, you could set up a partnership, build a team with other people with a wide range of skills, and get business going. But before you decide that a partnership is right for you and your business, remember to think back to the advantages and disadvantages that we have discussed. Until next time, this has been the BizzWizard.